All right. Thanks a lot, Miska and Jana, for the kind invitation to present the de.NBI Cloud here today. I just posted the link to the agenda into the Zoom chat so that everybody can have a look at it. And the slides are also linked from there. So if you want to look them up, feel free. I was already introduced a little bit. I will just add some more. So my name is Niels Hoffmann. I'm part of the de.NBI Cloud Governance at the de.NBI headquarters in Bielefeld, Germany. And yeah, today I will talk about some of the integrations we have with Life Science AI, Edugain, and Perun to manage the web application, the application workflow and projects in the de.NBI Cloud. First and foremost, I should probably start to explain to you what de.NBI actually is. For those of you who don't know, de.NBI is the German network for bioinformatics infrastructure. It currently consists of 24 partners, organized by research topics in bioinformatics around 8 distinct service units that you can see on the right-hand side. I hope you can see my mouse pointer. We are located in Bielefeld. Bielefeld is mainly working in microbial bioinformatics, but is also collaborating, of course, with the other locations. And since 2022, we are part of Forschungszentrum Jülich, part of the Helmholtz Society in Germany. After the limited funding period came to an end, where we received funding from the Federal Ministry of Education and Research. Our goals are to provide comprehensive first-class bioinformatics tools and services to users in basic and applied life sciences research in Germany, to provide training dedicated to how to apply the tools that we develop and offer, but also throughout Europe, and to participate and organize workshops and courses. And another very important component that I will talk about more today is the cloud computing that we offer, primarily for scientists in Germany, because that is mainly tied to our funding structure. But using the cloud infrastructure is always possible via proxy of a German principal investigator. We also have an industrial forum where we try to connect partners from industry, small and medium-sized enterprises, with partners in our bioinformatics network to team them up for research-oriented research, application in industry. And of course, we also cooperate within Germany with other bioinformatics groups that are not part of our network, and also on the European and international scale. And as such, we are also the dedicated ELIXIR Germany node within the ELIXIR Europe Bioinformatics Network. So to give you more overview about the de.NBI Cloud, the de.NBI Cloud was founded quite some time ago. So now we have 2024, and I think we are in our 8th year now. It was early on in the network recognized that having access to compute infrastructure that is not HPC based in Germany was definitely a gap in the portfolio. So the BMBF decided to fund the establishment of this distributed and federated cloud infrastructure within Germany as part of the German Network for Bioinformatics Infrastructure. As you can see on the right-hand side, we are currently 8 dedicated cloud sites distributed all over Germany. Some are being run by universities, such as Gießen University part or Heidelberg University, but other locations are also run, for example, by DKFZ, by EMBL, or by Charité, which are partially also within Helmholtz or are their dedicated own entities. As you can see from the logos, we host different types of projects. So most of our cloud locations run OpenStack as a basis. Some of them also offer Kubernetes based on OpenStack or operated within OpenStack. EMBL now has decided to start a new endeavor towards hosting. You see not all of the presentation? Does anybody else have that problem?
Now it's solved.
Okay.
Yeah, I have the same.
But now you can see everything, or?
Yes.
Yes, it's better.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sharing my complete screen, so I hope if there are any issues, please let me know. Okay, back to EMBL. So they are basically now hosting Kubernetes on a bare metal installation and trying to operate it in that way. But we are currently on the way of integrating that a bit more. Freiburg University is a special case, also part of de.NBI Cloud, but they are exclusively using their resources to host the use galaxy.eu instance of the global Galaxy network. If you want to gain access to the de.NBI Cloud resources, we're using Life Science Login as our login provider. This is connected to EduGain and different other social logins. However, for the scientific use cases we support, we definitely prefer EduGain because some of the claims that are available via EduGain can directly be used within our application workflow to check whether a applicant is actually a staff member, for example, of a university. That is important for us to make sure that people are entitled to actually request the resources because they have to be linked to the German academic system. So people first start off by joining the de.NBI virtual organization and signing up for Life Science Login, and then use this account within the de.NBI Cloud for authentication. And they submit their application, select the project types and resources that they need, and then submit the application naming a responsible PI for the project. So either the PI himself can sign up, or they can have someone else sign up in their name, and then they get a link where they can approve the application. We then have an internal review process, and in this process, we basically check, for example, the claims. If we see that someone has only signed up, for example, with a Google account, we try to make sure that we have other means of making sure the person is entitled to actually file that application. Usually that involves some manual searches, and sometimes even a Zoom-based authentication. We then have sometimes a back and forth between the applicants and our reviewing to make sure that their demands are met and also that they are using the resources to the best of our abilities, and that also their resource requirements match with what they are trying to do. And after this gets approved, resources get allocated. I will go into that process a bit more later on. And after that, they can use the resources by logging in, for example, to the OpenStack dashboard, also again using Life Science Login, or to SimpleVM, which is a different project type that I will go into more detail later on. It's also possible via our centralized portal to request project time extensions. So usually our projects are limited to between 3 and 6 months. In certain cases, you can also ask for a longer project duration. If you have, for example, a grant that runs for 3 years, you can also directly ask for a 3-year project runtime. And if you ever find that there are any resources missing for your project because maybe your requirements have grown, then you can also file a modification request via our portal. So let's go into the different project types that we offer. So I already mentioned that we primarily base most of our systems on OpenStack. So this is highly configurable and allows a virtualization of the underlying hardware infrastructure. It also provides API access. So you don't only have access via the OpenStack dashboard, but you can also generate an API token, for example, and use OpenStack infrastructure with Terraform or Ansible for infrastructure automation tasks. And this can basically also be used to host any software of the cloud ecosystem. With Kubernetes, you're a bit higher on the abstraction layer, so you're trying to model services with some regard for the underlying virtualized hardware, of course. You also have API access, for example, with kubectl, and can basically run any containerized, stateful software and services, and also use, for example, Helm charts to organize and deploy and manage the lifecycle of deployed applications. SimpleVM is a beginner-friendly development that was undertaken at Bielefeld University to provide browser-based access to pre-configured research environments, but also providing a lot of customizability. This has also Life Science AAI in front to guard your interactive browser sessions, and also offers a one-click solution to set up your own grid engine or a grid-based cluster system. And last but not least, Galaxy also uses LS AAI as one of the possible login providers. and allows you to run bioinformatics workflows, and also offers a comprehensive user interface in the browser that allows you to construct your own workflows from pre-existing bioinformatics tools. So let's look into the project application workflow in more detail. So the first phase here is registration that we already went into, and the actual login part. So this is all handled by the Life Science login. You need a PI to apply for the resources in the cloud and to accept the usage policy that we offer. And this then goes into the scientific reviewing committee. So this is a rather small review in comparison to usual HPC environments. So we ask you to define basically what kinds of resources you're requesting, what are you trying to do on the cloud, what is your scientific use case. Then we try to judge whether what you're asking for in resources is justified or not. And usually we will ask people to start off with a smaller set of resources to first establish their use case, and then later on they can file for an extension or for a modification and request more resources. This is then created all within the de.NBI Cloud Portal that gives you an overview of your existing projects and the associated resources. And those resources are also then, after we approve them, allocated to one of the cloud sites. And this is where Perun comes into play. So what were the first requirements for us to set this up with our application workflow? First requirement was, of course, authentication. So to make sure that the people using the cloud infrastructure are coming from a scientific institution, for example, or otherwise we can assume that they have a certain identity. Second part is, of course, authorization. So we want to make sure that we have a project structure that allows us to define roles within this project, and to make sure that the persons logging in are only able to execute actions that are connected and allowed by their group membership. Last but not least, project coordination. So having a look at the resources that the project uses, this is also very important for us, and also to be able to communicate these project resources to the cloud site that is finally hosting these applications. So in the first part, we have the combination of home institution account and Life Science AAI that we use for this authentication part. Authorization is done via Perun group management features. And finally, the project coordination is done via the propagation to the cloud side. That's also used, where we also use Perun. So for those of you who don't know Life Science Login in Perun, so Life Science AAI is an infrastructure that is run by the Czech ELIXIR node, and I think was originally developed in conjunction with CSC in Finland. And this provides us the possibility to offload some of the burden of authentication to someone who is dedicated to doing that. So, for example, also connecting to EduGain, also being able to export and connect person-specific claims that we can then use to see whether someone is a staff member of a given university or just a student. And based on these claims, we can then move forward in assessing whether they are allowed to file an application request or not, and also to decide on possible group memberships in the end. Perun, on the other hand, is, I think you could compare it to a directory management system, something like LDAP, but with a much larger scope and also a very comprehensive user interface. And this is what provides us with the authorization capabilities. So we have virtual organizations in Perun that you can be a member of. And within these virtual organizations, you can have groups. And in de.NBI Cloud, groups are basically what we call projects. And so members of a group are members of the project, and you can have group admins that are also project admins in the de.NBI Cloud, and so on. Through Life Science login, we have a unified login experience. So, for example, I'm working at Research Center Jülich, and I can simply use the EduGain integration with Life Science login and use my local login, have a single sign-on experience, basically also out of the box. And what is also really important nowadays, especially for people with administrative privileges in this management system in Peru, is that we can also use a one-time pad authentication. So if you have Google Authenticator, for example, you can also set that up as your second factor. And that, of course, increases the security of your accounts. What you can do in this identity management system with Perun is you manage your own user account, for example. And what is also really nice is you can also connect different accounts to one identity. So thing that we frequently encounter in the de.NBI cloud is that people start working for one university, for example, and they request a project, and then they sometime graduate, and then they maybe start their own group somewhere, and they want to move their project, which is something that we cannot automatically do, but we can negotiate that with the original PI and then transfer the rights, etc. But they often don't have access to their own old mail account anymore. And that's really an issue, of course, if they use that as a primary means of authentication. And this is where Life Science Login is actually quite nice to Perun, because you can add a second identity or even more identities to your account. And that allows you to log in using, for example, ORCID, while your original account was basically from your university, for example. On top of that, Life Science Login allows us to use OpenID Connect, for example, and also SAML, so we can connect multiple authentication systems with it. And as I mentioned earlier, we have the proxy authentication to Edugain, Google, ORCID, LinkedIn, and other authentication providers. And as a last resort, you can always create a local username and password, the Life Science Hostel account, which then again, if you link that to your identity, can be used to recover your access, for example. So let's go a bit into more details about the Cloud Portal access and authorization workflow. So first handoff, we have the single sign-on here with Life Science AI. So we can access this with our home institution credentials. We use OpenID Connect for the integration here. We can then, in Life Science AI, configure that certain documents need to be acknowledged by someone who wants to use the application. Or if they want to join the de.NBI virtual organization, for example, they have to accept our usage policy, maybe the data protection policy, and other things that you might have. And this is all configurable. And in turn, what we receive then for our system and for our management internally are user attributes like the name, the affiliation. So we see, for example, that someone is a staff of a certain university, or maybe he's a student of the university, something like that. We have the Life Science ID that we use as a unique identifier within all of our systems. And we can then also do certain tasks within Perun in the name of the user. After this authentication, the user receives an access token, and this can then be used for further access to Perun. And this, for example, we use as a database, more or less. This is where I said before, this is a bit like an LDAP system because you can store a lot of information in it. For example, you can put in the public SSH keys of the user. So this is what we use that for particularly. And but you can also customize what is being stored in Perun itself for each user. Apart from that, we also have the project information that is managed within Perun. So that includes project quotas, SSH keys, project members, etc. And the push adapter within Perun allows you to push this information to an endpoint. So this can be via FTP, this can be via SSH, for example, or by contacting a REST API. This can be done via the Perun Keystone adapter that we developed at the de.NBI Cloud. You can also go to this link down here. And this basically allows you to hook up the endpoint within Perun to an OpenStack instance, and then creates and provisions the OpenStack projects on each push, and also deactivates projects that are no longer contained within the push. This also makes sure that the user Life Science ID is set into Keystone. So in OpenStack, this ensures that the users can actually log in. And this is propagated on every update, so rather frequently. And this is then deployed at each individual location that uses this adapter. Not all de.NB Cloud locations actually use the adapter, so some have decided to just use the endpoint from Perun to receive the push to a custom endpoint and then work with their own tools on this on the content. You can also then use this. So once this information has been provisioned to OpenStack to authenticate with the OpenStack dashboard, for example, using the web interface, or to create your own access tokens for authentication if you use SSH access, for example, or the OpenStack API. Second part here is for the membership management, allocation of the resources, and modification. And just to give you an overview how we map this, so I briefly mentioned this before, how the concepts are related to each other between the de.NB Cloud on the left-hand side and Perun on the right-hand side. So we have the members of the Cloud Access Committee, which are in Perun equivalent to the virtual organization managers. So virtual organization in this case would be the de.NB virtual organization that contains all of the groups that are running at the different facilities, for example. And this group of people decide which project should run in the de.NB Cloud. We then on the next level have the administrators, or the project, the general administrators, the site administrators of the cloud sites, which correspond to the Perun facility managers. So you can model these cloud sites as separate facilities within Perun. And those are the people who maintain an actual cloud location and announce downtimes via the cloud portal, which also has an integration via email, so that we can contact all project members or project PIs or admins via email, for example. So this is very convenient. On the next level, we have the principal investigators, which are taking over the legal responsibility for a project, which correspond to the Perun project admins or group admins. Those are the ones who apply for a project or sign off that someone else is applying for a project. They manage the project members and are responsible for all the actions in the de.NB Cloud project that they are running. And last but not least, we have the project member, which corresponds to a Perun group member here, which has or who has access to the cloud resources and may also be promoted to have project admin permissions by one of the Perun group admins. If we look at this from another perspective, this is very simplified. So we see Perun up here. We have the de.NB Cloud virtual organization. And we can model different facilities in here. So what, for example, we would have the two facilities as an example here for Gießen and Bielefeld, which are dedicated cloud sites, each of them running their own OpenStack system. And the definitions that are being assigned here, so the groups within Perun that are assigned to the de.NB Cloud facility Bielefeld, would then be propagated, for example, also to this cloud OpenStack endpoint that we configured with the OpenStack adapter. For simple VM, we do it a bit differently. We don't propagate the groups, but we still have the group management within Perun. And then each group, each project basically has a certain number of resources assigned to it. In this case, this is very simplified. So in reality, we would have multiple VMs, for example, that could be defined as a limit here, or resources such as GPU types, but random access memory in this case, or the number of cores for a given project.
Oké, Boris, die komt eraan. Oké.
Okay. Hans, can you mute yourself, please?
Yes.
Thanks. And this is all then, so all of these solid lined groups here are propagated to the cloud location. So within the de.NB virtual organization, as a normal user, you don't really have access to any projects unless you are assigned to a certain group. And then this also means via the propagation mechanism that you also can access the OpenStack dashboard, for example. And depending on whether you are a group admin or whether you are just a regular member, also the resulting rights that you have in OpenStack, for example, are different. All of this is integrated via the de.NB Cloud portal using the Perun API access. And also the cloud portal gives you a comprehensive overview of all the projects that you are a part of. So you don't have to go to the Perun website. You can, of course, do that. But since we are modeling this slightly differently than Perun might, we are offering a custom portal view of the projects, of the project membership management, and the resources, and also the application workflows. So to show you an example of another system that we have developed, so Simple VM, to provide customized self-service VMs with predefined research environments. We've also integrated that with Life Science AAI and Perun to a certain degree. And Simple VM is intended to provide beginner-friendly, pre-configured custom research environments integrated with Life Science AAI for authentication and authorization again. This also comes with a custom user interface where you can define your VM, you can define your volumes and manage them, and also manage the users within your projects and also user access to your VMs. And last but not least, also provides browser and SSH access to your virtual machines. So we have some pre-configured research environments available here. So for example, Visual Studio Code or typical data science notebooks like RStudio and Jupyter. But the idea behind this is that the community or interested users can actually contribute their own Ansible and Packer-based recipes to create these VREs also for reuse by others, and we review them before they go live. For VM, we have a similar distribution for the projects or for the sites that we had before for OpenStack. We don't have it rolled out everywhere, so we had the first deployment of Simple VM, I think, of about 4 to 5 years ago. Since then, we had primarily 2 sites operating Simple VM, so Bielefeld and Gießen University. We have since re-implemented the complete stack, basically, and also the user interface, because before it was integrated in our old portal. Now it is a completely separate application that can also be deployed independently. And we have now rolled it out to 4 production sites, including DKFZ Heidelberg and Charité Berlin. And we also have a unified management portal here. So this is also deployed separately at Bielefeld University now, so independent of Life Science login actually, because in Bielefeld, the university wanted to evaluate it for their own internal use cases and for their own data science infrastructure and for teaching courses. So there it is directly linked to the university IDP. Again, we use AI integration via Keycloak in this case, and a local database to manage certain aspects of the projects, and have developed this in a microservice architecture so that we have the portal component independent of the API gateway and reverse proxy to access the virtual machine environments, and a Simple VM OpenStack client per site that allows us to orchestrate VM operations and volume operations. The VM access is handled via gateway and uses a single IP per location, so that makes it possible to reuse a lot of IPs. So IPv4 is still an issue in Germany, and that is why we use that. We are also monitoring all of the deployed virtual machines using Snort to make sure that they are protected against outside attacks. So I showed you the workflow for OpenStack before. For Simple VM, it is quite similar. So you have this authentication via OIDC or SSO in the beginning, using Life Science login, in this case connected to Keycloak. So this is slightly different setup than we had before. When you enter the Simple VM portal, you can then use the Simple VM API access to trigger tasks and put them in the task action queue. That basically means things like creating a virtual machine, restarting it, attaching volumes, modifying the members that have access to the virtual machine, etc. This is all then connected to the Simple VM OpenStack client that runs at a particular cloud site, and then, for example, runs the necessary steps to start a Jupyter Lab virtual machine that you can then access as a user using the SSO authentication via Life Science login from your browser. Just to give you an overview, this is the new portal. So the old portal for the complete cloud looks a bit different, but the structure is rather similar. So when you log in, after you log in, you have your user profile up here where you can also see your life science AI ID, for example, and also your public SSH key. Then you have a number of projects that you can select. And within each of these projects, you can create new VM instances. In this case, for example, we first selected the project, and then select one of the virtual machine flavors to start them, then go on to select one of the virtual research environments. You can also alternatively use base images, snapshots, or whatever is available. Then create and define your volumes, and then start your virtual machine. You can also control access to your virtual machines in this case. So you see the number, the available project members. In this case, this would be, for example, pulled from the group members in Perun. See whether people have a public key set or not, and then you can add them down here to have access to that particular VM or not. We also have some additional features that we have been using extensively. Maybe I will go into detail on the workshop one here. This allows you to define multiple virtual machines that all use the same base image and are assigned to particular life science AI user account. So that makes it possible to have individualized virtual machines for every workshop participant. So we use that extensively for training events. It also allows you to send virtual machine access details to each participant individually, and also allows you control over the VM instances for your participants. You can also add trainers to your project and then add those trainers and their public keys to the VM instances so that they can also access the VMs when the participants have issues. So let's go over some numbers. So this is most of the integration already done now. So at the moment, the de.NBI Cloud has 8 sites. We have about 56,000 CPUs at the moment, about 520 GPUs, ranging from like V100 models, P100 models, up to A100 models nowadays, but also increasingly smaller ones like L4 or A40 models. As a Bioinformatics and Life Science Cloud, we offer very large memory instances, so specifically for sequence analysis applications or other very high mem intensive applications. What I didn't really mention is we offer quite a lot of block storage via OpenStack and also S3 compatible object storage. And last but not least, also have instances with dedicated local SSD disks that allow running, for example, database workloads, etc. So we are I think one of the largest users of the LS AAI at the moment. I think last time I looked into the stats, we were around a third of the number of logins per month or something like that. Right now we have 3,500 registered users. I have to say I'm not completely sure how many of those are currently active. So probably maybe 50%. We have about 1,200 projects that have been registered. The split is 700 of them are about OpenStack. The Kubernetes ones, we don't have a dedicated number yet, but we're working on reporting that soon. And simple VM is growing constantly. So we see a lot of use for that by groups that want to provide their PhD students, for example, a dedicated a virtual machine with a lot of memory to run dedicated workflows, for example. And there we have now 500 projects in action and 59 workshop projects that have been run already with simple VM. We also try to offer a lot of training with a cloud user meeting that we host annually. And that gives our users an overview on basic VM utilities, how to work with Linux, the command line, how to use simple VM, introduction to workflows like Nextflow, Bioconda, CWL, etc. But also it covers topics like infrastructure automation. What we haven't had so far is something like service onboarding, so how to use LS AAI, for example, to connect your service and add login capabilities and authentication capabilities. But that's also something that we could offer in the future, I think. Yeah, if you run a cloud infrastructure, you always have to justify that your funding agencies are pouring a lot of money into you. And one way of showing them some impact is, of course, to list citations. So the de.NBI Cloud since 2017 has been cited more than 1,000 times, including Use Galaxy. So that's definitely a bit, I would say 60, 70% are probably Use Galaxy citations here in this case, and the rest are plain de.NBI Cloud citations. We also gather testimonials from our users to make sure that we also include their voice in how we are being evaluated. And you can check those out on the de.NBI Cloud site if you want to in more detail. We also have some international collaboration, and of course, this call today is one example of that. So we are involved in the ELIXIR Compute platform concerning identity and access management, but also in different hybrid cloud implementation studies and many other activities in ELIXIR as a whole. As an infrastructure, de.NBI Cloud has also been used in quite a number of European scale projects. ELIXIR Accelerate, for example, EOSC Live with a hybrid cloud demonstrator, and many more. We are also working, so partners from our network, for example, in Berlin, from Charité, are also involved in implementation of GA4GH standards and deploying these components also in the de.NBI Cloud. One current project is, or involvement where we are part of, is EOSC Entrust, where we take part in the Providers Forum. So we provide different types of trusted or secure processing environments. So Tübingen, for example, offers a secure processing environment based on OpenStack, where people can define and install their own tools as much as possible, while Berlin offers a very high-level integration trusted research environment with workflow support and other capabilities as well. On the national level, we are also closely connected to the National Research Data Infrastructure, which also might be interesting here because they are establishing a core service, base service initiative, not only the federated multi-cloud infrastructure, but also a central AI service for NFDI. And there have also been connections in the past to talk about the possibility to integrate life science AI and this NFDI AI as a federated authentication service. And concerning the ongoing work towards EOSC and having EOSC AI, where I know that life science AI is also included, this is going to be a future direction where we are also investigating how we can connect to this. Last but not least, we have the German Competence Center for Cloud Technologies for Data Management and Processing that was recently launched, also together with the 8 cloud sites in Bielefeld, under the lead of Bielefeld. In this case, where we try to integrate and offer services that use cloud technologies to enable better data management and processing awareness by offering a lot of training and interactive training environments. So you saw the cloud user meeting slides beforehand. So some of these trainings are going to be the basis for some of the portfolio that we're trying to build up here to support people to use the cloud technologies as much as possible for their processing, and how to learn, for example, how to deploy a service that can also be integrated with life science AI, for example. Okay, with that, I'm at the end of my presentation. I hope that you got a first overview of how the de.NBI Cloud uses life science AI and Perun for authentication and authorization. And I hope that you enjoyed it and look forward to a lively discussion. Thanks.